This video is brought to you by Squarespace. There. I've done it. I've just posted my 36,007th recommendation on my website, Arlo Recommends. I've recommended every single thing in this world that I enjoy. With my work complete, my life no longer has meaning. And I did it all thanks to Squarespace. None of it would have been possible otherwise because I don't know how to build a website. But with Squarespace, all I had to do was pick a template, tweak it to meet my needs, and boom, super duper nice looking site. I was only able to post so many recommendations because Squarespace makes it so easy to do. Text, images, embedded tweets and videos, pretty much anything. It's all simple to plug in and turns out looking great pretty much no matter what. You can schedule posts and even have them automatically pushed to social media, which saves work and lets you focus on the content. Or eating hot dogs. I don't know, do whatever you want with your free time. Squarespace offers a ton of powerful extensions to suit the needs of just about any website, as well as extensive analytics so you can track how many people are interacting with your site. To try it out for yourself, head to squarespace.com for a free trial. Then when you're ready to launch, head to squarespace.com/Arlo to save 10% off your first website or domain. Wait a minute. I've got it. One more recommendation. I, Arlo, recommend Squarespace.
It's been Squarespace all along. It was always Squarespace.
Pick a glap. I wasn't playing anything in particular. So the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild will be a great game. It's gonna be great. I have no doubt in my mind that it is going to be awesome. I just want to make that clear because a lot of people seem to they kind of get the wrong idea whenever I say I'm like a little bit worried about something, you know? It is going to be a Zelda game. And like basically every other Zelda game, it will enter the eternal club of Zelda games that we just kind of play forever. It's gonna be great. But just bear with me here. You know me, I just like to talk about stuff. I'm starting to worry a little bit about how much of an impact it might end up having. And to be completely honest, my excitement for it is at an all-time low. Just an all-time low. And there are a few reasons. I have already mentioned in the past that my hype levels for the game have gotten surprisingly low for a Zelda game. Like, it's a Zelda game, you know, nothing beats a Zelda game. Zelda games, they're events, you know? And like a sequel to the series redefining Breath of the Wild, like that's a really, really big deal. But you know, as I've said, it's just kind of like, it's been so long since they announced it. It's been so long. And I know plenty of things could have delayed it, pandemic, all that stuff. But like whatever the case is, whatever the delay was, whatever is keeping this game from us, the fact of the matter is, it is hard for me to stay hyped for 3 solid years. More than half of the time that Breath of the Wild has been out, we've been waiting for the sequel. More than half. I will admit, as I have in the past, that it's completely, entirely possible that all it's gonna take is one solid trailer to bring back the hype, get me back on that train completely. It's possible. And like, at the time of this recording, we are rapidly approaching June. Nintendo's probably gonna do a Nintendo Direct. If they do, super duper likely that they will finally do a big reveal. I shouldn't get my hopes up, but it's super likely we'll get the full reveal. I'm gonna play it, I'm gonna love it, but at least at the moment, I feel like in order to get myself really back on that hype train, it's probably gonna have to be a real heck of a trailer, you know? My main issue right now, and the real reason why I'm doing this video here, is just something I've been thinking about a lot, and it's that Breath of the Wild 2 has a whole lot to live up to. Just a whole lot. And that is what makes me slightly worried about it. Just slightly worried. Breath of the Wild didn't just reinvent Zelda. That's not the reason it was so important. It was also a big deal because in a lot of ways, it challenged the rest of the open world games coming out of the industry. It went against the grain. It dared to be different. It was seen by many, not all, as just a very refreshing take on the genre. And for me and people like me, it was really kind of a first time thing. It really was the coolest world that I had ever explored in a video game. And it was free from most of the open world trappings we've seen so many times. It really was just like a fresh, magical experience. That's already a tough act to follow. But the thing about the game is that, like, it was really cool, but it had a lot of issues. Those issues were easier to ignore because the rest was so wonderful, you know? But like, that ice has been broken. This territory has been breached. They're not gonna get that same wow factor, you know? Like, if Breath of the Wild 2 is really just the same thing again, but with, you know, a new story and like a couple new mechanics, but like all the same problems, it might be seen as a decent disappointment. And that's especially because they're reusing the map. Like, naturally, pretty much no matter how they go about it, if they're reusing the map, there is a risk there of it feeling like kind of an easy retread. I honestly think if they had actually done like the quick asset reusing turnaround thing, I think that might have been fine. Like if it took them 2 or 3 years to give us this game and it's Breath of the Wild, but just kind of better, just kind of a little bit different, I think that would have been all right. Like, I've said it endlessly. A sequel doesn't have to reinvent everything if it just comes in good time, you know? It's okay to simply improve upon what you've got and continue the story, you know, especially if you've built a really great world with a really great story. But after waiting over 5 years, like the amount of time we usually have to wait for a brand new, complete reinvented Zelda, and already knowing that the map is gonna be reused, like, unless they lean really, really hard into making just an amazing story, maybe it ends up being super scary or weird or something, it's hard to imagine it making the same kind of splash that a new Zelda usually does, you know? And like, if it ends up just being pretty good, then that's gonna be extra disappointing considering we had to wait so long. Some people look at the long development time and see that as a reason to expect it to be really, really amazing. But maybe I'm just a pessimist because I kind of feel the opposite. I waited those standard Zelda 5 super long years, half decade for Skyward Sword and ended up being hugely disappointed with what I got. They took so long to make it because they had a hard time pinning down what the game even was. And even they admitted later that the game didn't turn out quite the way they wanted. That's one of the reasons they pivoted so dramatically, so sharply with Breath of the Wild. And if for Breath of the Wild, it took them, I know I cite this a lot, and I'm sure some people are starting to get annoyed with it, but it's such a thing. It took them 2 years to build the engine and like the core ideas and the physics and do all like the basic R&D stuff. 2 years for that. Then only 3 years to build the actual game and all of Hyrule and everything. 3 years! So when the sequel that largely reuses the same map, that takes 5 years, over 5 years, it's a little bit strange. On top of that, revealing the game, then going silent for years, like that makes me kinda nervous about what's going on behind the scenes. I guess I was burned so hard by Skyward Sword that I'm kind of scared of the same thing happening again, you know? Like, troubled development is never good in any case for any game. So even all by itself, Breath of the Wild 2 has a whole lot to live up to. Just such big shoes to fill, you know? But there's more reason why I think it's got a lot to live up to. And a lot of that reason is, oh boy. It's the Elden Ring. It's the Elden Ring. I got the Elden Ring on my Xbox, but I got it on my Steam Deck too because I'm sick. I don't need this. I don't need you. I don't need you. Anyway, I know lots of people get annoyed when you kind of compare games like this when they're really pretty different games, but bear with me. Bear with me. As I said, Breath of the Wild was a refreshing new take on open world games. And since it came out, like, no one else really stepped up to the challenge, you know? Like, it kind of challenged those games, but no one really, they still just kind of kept doing what they were doing with the open worlds. That is until Elden Ring came along this year. And like, there's a lot about Zelda that obviously Elden Ring does not have. They are different games. But from my perspective, the ways that Breath of the Wild refreshed the open world, Elden Ring took those things further. A good deal further. In fact, I might even go as far as to say it perfected the open world. Like, I don't know, I think it's surpassed Breath of the Wild. In my Breath of the Wild review, I went on and on about just like the pure magic of the world, you know? But now I can tell you that Elden Ring's world, it's all that and more, you know? I mean, it's Zelda has more in the way of like riddles and puzzles, and so that's fun. That's something that Zelda has over it, but just like the world itself, how it's crafted, how you traverse it, the different themes present in it. Elden Ring is, oh, it's so good. Oh, it's so good. It feels weird to say, but like honestly, I search my heart and I know this to be true. Elden Ring, I don't need you, is seriously one of the reasons my hype for Breath of the Wild 2 is so low right now. Elden Ring is so good, it's such an incredible game that I'm having a hard time imagining that Hyrule 1.5 is gonna be able to come even close to matching it, you know? Especially on the Switch, which is looking less and less appealing every day, isn't it? I mean, they give us a Switch Pro, that's one thing, but if I'm playing Breath of the Wild 2 on my old Switch, then yeah, it's good, it's beautiful, but it's getting old. And so, like, Elden Ring being that good, of course that's not Zelda's fault. You know, I don't think anyone in the industry expected Elden Ring to shake things up as much as it did, but, like, the bar has been raised. It has been raised. Zelda can no longer bank on being that one special open world game out there. You know, that's what Breath of the Wild was, and Breath of the Wild 2 does not have that. Unless they make some major changes to the game and just the way that it works, like, it's not the favorite one anymore, you know? It's not the only game that's different from the rest, challenging the industry, because, like, FromSoft just did that too, and they kind of did it even better. Maybe they took inspiration from Breath of the Wild. I can't necessarily say they just beat it, but, like, they raised the bar. That's all I mean. And you know what? Elden Ring's not a small game. It's like already sold over 10 million. It's shipped like 13 million. That's like, I wonder how much crossover is there. How many other people are like me, where they're like, yeah, I was excited for Zelda, but then I played this? I don't know. And again, I'll remind you again, I have to keep saying it. It's gonna be good. The game's gonna be good. I'm gonna get it. I'll probably love it a ton. It's just gonna be a little bit sad if it ends up being no more than a solid Zelda game, you know, that we all play. Okay, and then we're just kind of done. Not every game has to be massively groundbreaking. It's not fair to say that because Breath of the Wild was so fresh and new, every Zelda game after that has to be so fresh and new. That's not sustainable, sure. But at the same time, Zelda does have a very high pedigree. And as I've said, we've waited so long. Like, Nintendo is sitting pretty with the game because, like, Breath of the Wild has been so successful. The Switch is in so many homes that, like, the sequel could sell literally a quarter of the units and still be seen as a pretty darn good success. Like, what'll that be, 6, 7, 8 million units by the end? Like, that's still pretty good. But wow, that would be a pretty big drop, and it would be just kind of sad to see it happen. And that's fairly likely to happen if the sequel doesn't wow us, if it doesn't knock our socks off. Breath of the Wild has sold a lot, but I have to wonder how many of those people were not happy with it. You know, there's plenty of people. Look anywhere. Look in the comment section of this video. There's plenty of people who are just like, I don't like this direction for Zelda. I didn't like it. And like, if Nintendo doesn't like listen to those people and fix the most common problems with their game, then those people are not gonna give it the second one a chance. And it's a little scary because this is Nintendo we're talking about. They're very choosy about like when and where they want to listen to people. Sometimes they look at what people are saying and that can affect future games, and sometimes they put their fingers in their ears and go la 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 and do whatever they want. And if Breath of the Wild 2 still is mostly micro dungeons without a lot of major ones, and still has breakable weapons and no crafting and not much of a story or whatever, you know, the list goes on, that is a lot of people who are just gonna nope right out of there. I think you get what I'm saying by now. Just the sequel to Breath of the Wild, it's just like, it's just got so much to live up to, you know? The first game was so fresh, but also very flawed. And now the sequel, is it gonna be fresh? Because that format that they established is no longer fresh. They don't have that anymore. They don't have the wow factor. And now other games are doing what they did and even better. Some aspects are better, not all of them, okay? Don't get mad at me. I'm just saying some of the things are better. The world is better. And so, yeah, I don't know. Just such a long development time, and now a hardcore Zelda fan, but just been in love with Zelda for so long now, is just like not that excited. And maybe that's just a me thing. Maybe there aren't a lot of other people like that, but maybe there are. Maybe there are. And that's your job, is to go down in those comments now! Are you still hyped for Breath of the Wild 2? Are you just waiting for that trailer? Has your hype kind of flatlined because of the... Come here, I wanna play it. Let me know down below, and in the meantime, I'm doing a strength intelligence build. I did a strength dex build last time, but this time I want to go for my intelligence. I think I might respec and turn it into dex intelligence still, and I think I'll probably want to get into arcane or something once I get a high enough low.